I'm Wes Hackett. I'm the CTO at Add-in 365, a productivity and Office 365 product company in the UK. I'm also an Office Server and Services MVP for the last 4 years. So I first got into SharePoint in 2006, working on sort of pre-release MOS, and I've been doing 2010, 2013, and then as soon as 2013 was available in Office 365, building lots of solutions, enterprises, products and stuff for Office 365, and our product company basically specialises in 365 only. So I was one of the fortunate few that saw the framework when it was just an idea on a whiteboard, nearly 2 years ago now, and then was involved with Dev Kitchen 1 February last year, so we got to see all the new ideas and framework, and really have been working with the product team on and off all the way since Feb last year, building pre-release, and then obviously when it went to public preview, helping the community, supporting the community in getting started, and now it's GA, building stuff for customers. Do you know what? The SharePoint framework today, is because web parts were the first thing to arrive, they really remind me of Visual C# web parts way back when for 2010. It's a web part container built with a particular technology that you sort of put your experience right into the middle of. So now what we've got is a React container that you can put your code into the middle of the web part, and then Microsoft are taking care of bootstrapping that into the page. So it's a good first start. I think it'll be quite exciting to see where the team take that implementation, the extension points, and beyond the web part box, if you like, in terms of allowing us to extend that modern UI that they've been delivering over the last 12 months. The thing that strikes me most about the SharePoint Framework roadmap is the velocity. Never before have Microsoft been so open and so fast. So as a SharePoint dev that's trying to get on the train to keep up, you've got to learn new technologies, Gulp, Webpack, Yeoman generators, all these things that kind of, as a normal SharePoint developer coming from an enterprise background, you're kind of not familiar with. So it's that velocity really, and the roadmap supports kind of their view of how they're going to modernize the whole of the SharePoint UI. And it's some really interesting pieces, but then there's still some big chunks missing. So provisioning still, we're reliant on PnP to do provisioning. And we've also got some challenges around branding. A lot of people still want to do, big arty design treatments to SharePoint sites. And there's some pretty big gaps in those areas at the moment. Favorite part of the SharePoint framework is a tricky one. I think the fact that it's moved into modern web dev stack makes it a lot more accessible. We at Add-in 365, we took decisions to take apprentices on, and they've come out of university and school having done JavaScript frameworks like Angular. We can take them on and get them productive against SharePoint very quickly. We haven't got to take them through a big sort of, understanding the surface area of SharePoint before they can start building things. If I was king for the day, the one thing I would add is I'd redress the balance between the amount of effort and implementation on React versus Angular. For 3 years, the Microsoft marketing team spent a lot of effort getting us to build spas, add-ins using Angular, and we've kind of been left behind with the push for React. I understand Microsoft want to use React, and the framework is agnostic to a point, but it's sometimes more problematic to use anything other than React to do some of the extensibility. I think I would sort of look at a bit higher level and make sure that we don't overspread the amount of customization we can do to the platform. I think there's the community in general is looking to replicate the development surface they had available to them from on-prem days, and there's some questions that I've seen, there's some commentary that I've seen about I want to extend it like this, I want to do that, I want to take over the UI, and the product team themselves are saying, well, to make it fast, to make it secure, to make it future-proofed. We need to control a lot more of that experience. The cloud has given you the agility and the speed, and it comes with the drawback that you don't necessarily have the extensibility to the UI that you once did. So that for me is the sort of key area. Just a lack of documentation. Really good, solid enterprise examples. There's a lot of Hello World. There's a lot of contributions in P&P, and those guys have done a great job of getting us to a baseline. But we really need solid enterprise guidance. How do we make sure we're doing auth the right way? How do we make sure, because we're moving from server side to client side, we need to make sure we're not exposing tokens. We need to make sure we're taking advantage of the right models for security. And also, there's not a huge amount of information about how we can leverage the data loss prevention and the rights management EMS suite alongside our custom implementations, because we now have to be cognizant of two-factor auth, all of the DLP pieces. When we build web parts, we don't want to be the ones leaking data. I think the SharePoint Framework is going to enable some of the business use cases to be solved. So, the fact we can start building web parts now that we can put on a team group site is really beneficial to a lot of enterprise organizations. The future, Microsoft have already said they're going to talk about publishing and making, sexy pages. So we're bound to see that. But I think really for me, it's still limited because it's just SharePoint. We've got Office 365, it's 17 or so services, teams, groups, Exchange. There's no single extensibility point anymore. It's, we're just focused on SharePoint with the SharePoint framework. And I think, that will effectively ring fence it, because our company is not just looking at SharePoint as the place to put things. Teams is a really obvious one, but there's other scenarios where you put extensibility. The Office clients is a great example. So SharePoint Framework has its place. It gives us the ability to do a lot of things that we need as an enterprise and as an ISV for products, but it isn't the whole story in Office 365.